So I think we all know by now that anytime Dressed Impress gets called out for, quote, copying or theft, they will kind of redo an item under the guise of, quote, reworking it and completely ignore the issue at hand, which of course that's just my opinion, and I don't want to state that as fact because at the end of the day, everything can always be debated. However, I believe we have yet another example of Dressed Impress, in my opinion, copying assets from other games and reworking the item without saying anything to avoid any form of culpability or being held accountable. And personally, as somebody who does creative content, it really upsets me and annoys me when games take credit for content that isn't theirs. And in my opinion, this content is just so similar, it's hard to believe that it's just a coincidence. Now, for those of you that may not know what I'm talking about, recently Dressed Impress released a new Robux set called Haunting Beauty, and I'm gonna be honest, when I first saw the set, I thought it was gorgeous. And you know, to be fair, the Dressed Impress team obviously puts a lot of effort into the clothing that they're doing, but that effort is undermined when you are caught blatantly, in my opinion, emphasis on my opinion, copying assets from other games, and that's what happened here. The Haunting Beauty set, which retails for about 259 Robux, was quickly called out for being very similar to another game, which you guys may know, called Infinity Nikki, which, guys, I love Infinity Nikki. Usually that's what I'm playing like every night when I'm done recording videos. It is my game. I love that game. And when I saw this outfit, I was like, it's really cute, but it seems a little familiar, and sure enough, a lot of you guys agreed too, so I'm going to show you guys the content that has allegedly been stolen, and you guys can let me know if you think it's just a coincidence or if it is, in your opinion, theft. Now, I do want to clarify that of course it's just my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt, but I do think it's awfully suspicious that anytime Dressed Impress is called out for allegedly copying or heavily referencing or not crediting artists, they just usually quietly remove the item from the game by saying it's being, quote, reworked, and then never take accountability, never apologize, and never make any comment about it. And that's exactly what happened here. I didn't even see actually an announcement saying this is reworked. Players just logged in to notice that the item that they paid real life money for was changed, which I have my own opinions about that, which we'll get in later, but the item we're talking about is this headpiece from the set. Now, if you look at it, you can see it's a very cute little headpiece. It's kind of giving Lolita vibes. It has a spiderweb patterning. It has these two bows on either side. That will be important later. This middle bow with 1, 2, 3 tiers and then 2 ribbons, and just overall a very, very cute piece. Now, as soon as I saw this, I immediately clocked it as being very similar to this set from Infinity Nikki. Now, this set came out about a year ago. I remember the amount of times I pulled to try and get this headpiece. Don't get me started. I can't even talk about it. I'm gonna get emotional. I wanted this headpiece so badly, and I kept pulling for it and I couldn't get it, so I got every other piece 30 times except for that headpiece. But regardless, if you look at this headpiece, you can see there's a lot of similarities. What are the similarities, you may ask? Well, first of all, we can start off with just the general shape. There's 2 kind of little ears, kind of like the other headpiece from Dressed Impress. There's lacing around it. And if we look at this bow in the middle, you can see there's 1, 2, 3 tiers and 2 little ribbons coming out, which is interesting because I feel like typically when you draw a bow, there may be like 2 different ribbons, but 3 is like really extravagant and not something that I typically see. And then on top of that, if you look down at the sides here, there's these 2 bows hanging off the sides, and they have these longer strands, which is the exact same as Dressed to Impress's headpiece. Now, a lot of you guys I know will go in the comments and be like, oh my god, Palmy, you're such a hater, this isn't copied. Babe, are you for real? And again, all I can say is just my opinion, but these are so similar to the point where this one had like, I think it was like a music note or something in the middle of her bow on Infinity Nikki, and they just replaced it with a spider web. And then if you look at like the detailing, she was meant to be like a wind-up doll. There was like some whole lore behind it for Halloween, and I can be honest, I kind of rushed through it because I wanted to get like the items for the little event that was going on. But she has like these kind of like intricate little lacing details on the ears, and Dressed Impress has spiderwebs there, which, you know, a lot of people will be like, oh well, they changed it, it's okay. But in my opinion, it's kind of giving like when you give your friend your homework and say you can copy it but change an answer, and they just change like the name on the paper. Like, it's just, this to me just looks so similar, and I really highly unfortunately doubt that this is just a coincidence. Now, aside from that, there is some other content that's been circulating of people saying that it looks copied, more specifically the neck piece for this package here. As you can see, it has like this kind of ruffling and this lace and these bows, and if you look at this neck piece from Infinity Nikki, which is part of the same set, you can see that it has the ruffling, a bow. It looks very similar. And okay, I get 1 piece of clothing, but then to have 2 pieces from the same set in Infinity Nikki, I don't know, it just seems very similar to me. Now, another thing too, which I feel like this one is a little bit more of a reach in my opinion, but I noticed that with these shoes, if you look up close, which I will credit the creator who this screenshot is from, but you can see on the high heels, they kind of have these weird cutout sections. They're on like a platform, okay? Now, if we look, in Infinity Nikki, there's something called miracle outfits, which like that's like the whole point of the game is to collect miracle outfits. And these shoes are from the first miracle outfit. And if you look, they're actually incredibly similar to the ones in Dressed Impress in the sense that they are kind of like detached and they're like the same shape with having the full heel here instead of it being cut out. And there's little kind of stems, or I don't even know what you call these, like little tiny supports or intricate details. But regardless, I just thought it was very, very similar. And unfortunately, the more you look into Infinity Nikki, you'll notice that there's actually quite a few other items that look very similar, which I'm not going to get into in this video because that's not the point. And I understand that, you know, at the end of the day, games will always get, you know, ideas or inspiration from other platforms, and I think that's totally okay. But what's not okay, in my opinion, is there's two things. The first thing is taking heavy inspiration from other game developers and not crediting them. Big no-no, especially when you're a large game. It's a bit different if you're like 8 years old making your first Roblox game and maybe you steal an idea from a bigger game. Okay, that's not right. At the end of the day, you're a kid, you probably didn't know, it's a small game. But to me, there's a bigger issue when you're actively profiting off of it, because in my opinion, this is actively profiting off of the work of Infinity Nikki. And you can say, oh, well, Pommy, like, you never know, like, maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know, you guys can let me know what you think in the comment section, but I feel like for it to be the exact same shape, the exact same lace, the exact same bows, the exact same tiers in the center bow, the exact same concept of having a centerpiece in the bow, it just seems so similar in my mind that I have a hard time believing that this is just some random coincidence. And the other issue I have with this is that players bought this item, right? They bought this package for, it depends on your location, I guess, because of Robux conversion rates, but for me it says 259 Robux, which it's not a massive amount of Robux, but it's also not an insignificant amount, okay? It would be different if you could earn this through like doing a task in the game or through a quest. However, players basically paid real life money to get this item, and then for it to just be quietly reworked, which maybe I missed the notification, let me know. I didn't see any notifications about this. And so personally, if I would have spent 250-ish Robux purchasing this and I really liked the headband, and maybe that was the only reason I purchased it, was I liked the headband. And then a couple days later, for it to be quietly changed with no information given to me, and I log in and there's like this different hat, which I'm going to show you guys on the screen now, I would be fuming. And I'm not saying that the new item is ugly, not at all. I think it's a very cute item still. However, I think it's not fair to be charging players for sets, real life money, which you guys say it's Robux, but at the end of the day, it is real life money. You have to use real life money to get Robux, right? And then you expect to have a certain item in the game, and then that item is quietly switched out for another item that you never agreed to. In my opinion, if players bought an item, and that item ends up being allegedly stolen, and so you quietly change it without saying anything a couple days later, I feel like you should give players the option of getting a refund. And I know that the whole logistics of that would probably be super messy, but in my opinion, if players are paying for something, they should be paying for what they're actually getting. You can't just switch out an item after someone's paid for it and be like, oh yeah, you should be okay with this. Because in my opinion, I think the new item's pretty too, but personally, I preferred the first one. I preferred the first headpiece. And at the end of the day, if it was allegedly heavily inspired, heavily referenced, super almost copied from Infinity Nikki, and they were getting backlash, which is what I saw, and they ended up changing it for that reason, why you wouldn't put out a statement being like, hey guys, sorry, mistake, oopsie daisies, we changed it out. If you guys don't like the new item, we can give you like some sort of in-game credit or something for the inconvenience. We can offer to refund you and then you don't get access to the items anymore, or something along those lines. There has to be some sort of give and take, because personally I see it as being incredibly unfair for, number one, to be profiting off of what I believe, and in my opinion, is a heavily referenced or heavily copied asset from another video game, and number two, to allow players to purchase the outfit combination for that asset and then switch out the asset without saying anything, so that players don't get what they purchased. And you can say, oh, well, they have a new head item, and yeah, that's cool, that's whatever, but it's the premise of not communicating with people who have purchased something and not being transparent. The lack of transparency here is what is annoying. At the end of the day, there's a lot of dress-up games that have been called out for allegedly copying or stealing assets or heavily referencing things, and I just don't understand why it is so difficult to just give credit to people that you're utilizing their content from. I really don't understand it. And I think at the end of the day, the reason why they may be like not super vocal about, you know, changing things out or quote reworking, in my opinion, borderline stolen assets, is because of the legal implications. I'm sure if Infinity Nikki saw this and, you know, if maybe they share the same sentiment as me and said, wow, this is like really close, this is kind of eerie. Like, it looks basically the same. There may be some room for litigation or for, cease and desist letters or stuff like that, like a whole legal realm of stuff that can be done about that. And so my opinion, I guess maybe because of like the legalities of it, that's why they're just quietly changing things. But again, for me, it's just like the frustration of not being transparent. Games make mistakes, but when you're continuously being called out for allegedly, emphasis on allegedly, stealing assets, copying assets, taking artwork from smaller artists and turning it into 3D models like we went over in the last video, it just to me comes off across really scummy and just dishonest. And the whole premise of your game is to promote inclusivity and creativity, but you can't even do that with your development team, in my opinion. I just think this is so backwards, and I really, really hope that going forward, Dressed Impress will maybe hire somebody who full-time, their whole job can be to look into assets before they're published and make sure, okay, yeah, this asset, it's too similar to this, even if they didn't directly copy it, it's really similar, let's change out some things. Maybe we'll just make the bow 2 ribbons, or maybe we won't add the lace, maybe we'll add like a spider web thing instead around the edges, or something like that. But when you have clothing assets that are this similar to the point where someone who plays other games can easily recognize it, I feel like that's a really bad thing. But again, please keep in mind this is just my opinion, so let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think this is copying? Do you think it's theft? Do you think it's maybe just some big coincidence with all these clothing items or the track history? Let me know, and of course, my intention with all of my videos is only to share information with you guys that you guys can come up with your own informed decisions about a situation, not to spread hate or harassment, so please don't do that. However, I really do think that transparency is important, and when you make a mistake, it's okay, we all make mistakes, but just owning it and being like, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have done that, that's what I feel like is important. And personally, it just doesn't sit right with me to be supporting a game that doesn't really have that transparency, in my opinion. But regardless, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!